educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here is your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank y'all very much for tuning in today. I think we're going to have a great show. We're going to have some fun in this show. The individual I'm going to speak to today, he started his first company a week after graduating college. A lot of us, we're not sure how we would do that in most cases, right? But has been an entrepreneur ever since. He's building businesses through Monkey Island Ventures, a company he co-founded with two of his best friends. Monkey Island Ventures is named after a park they played at when they were kids, since they were about 5 years old. I wonder if that park is even still open. Over the years, the trio has built over a dozen software and service businesses and want to help create as many successful entrepreneurs as they can by sharing what they know. Their company, Cloudburst, just released The Rise of the Non-Technical Entrepreneur Guide, which is ushering in a new era of entrepreneurship. I thank y'all very much for coming on the show, listening today. I bring none other to you than Colin. Colin, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Maurice. I'm really excited to be here.
Sure.
It'll be fun.
Sure, thank you. Well, can you answer the first question, right? Which is Monkey Island still open?
It is. It's actually our holding company. So back in 2007, I had just finished selling my first company. My business partner, Josh, moved up from Uruguay. He'd been down there for a decade. And my other business partner, Zach, was helping transition a children's publishing company into a sale. So he was kind of working himself out of a job. So the three of us were like, we should start our own company. And we decided, you know what, we're going to start the holding company called Monkey Island Ventures. We've all known each other since we were about 5 years old. Josh was literally my next door neighbor when we were growing up. And Monkey Island is truly the name of a park we played at when we were kids. And that park still is there in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Really? Okay. And I'm only asking because, some things change, people find reasons to take away something that we as kids, grew up on. We have fond memories. And the next thing you know, it's an apartment building, so that's why I asked.
Yep. No, the park is still there. So they got rid of the more dangerous old equipment that we had so much fun on and made it a safer park. But
I know, right?
It lost some of its charm when they did that.
I bet.
It's still a good little park there.
Nice. So with this idea of entrepreneurship, we talk about the rise of the non-technical entrepreneur. So a lot of times we get caught up in the technical terms, understanding social media, understanding analytics, all these, like you said, technical things or whatever it might be. And I understand that there's a lot of things that's going on with AI that might pull away from some of the technical stuff. So, but what are you talking about, or what are you referring to as the rise of the non-technical entrepreneur?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, when we started building our various companies back in 2007, Josh, Zach, and I, none of us are programmers. None of us can write code. So when we would build software products, we always had to hire a developer to help us. And what we've seen over the last few years is a confluence of factors. One is with the rise of low-code, no-code tools for non-technical people to build their own software products. You can use The second is using international talent, right, at a much lower cost. Like you can find talent in India or Ghana, Honduras. You can use platforms like Upwork to go find talent internationally to help you build software. And then the third is AI. And so you'd be surprised at how quickly you could get specific, chunks of code written with AI if you have an idea. So really the rise of the non-technical entrepreneur, the main kind of theme behind that is entrepreneurs at the core, they have these creative ideas, right? They see a problem, they want to build something for whatever reason, they want to attack that problem. And many times what we've seen when you want to attack a problem with software, with tech, you've always had to rely on somebody else that has that technical aptitude. But we're finding that becoming less and less of a barrier. And so we created that guide called The Rise of the Non-Technical Entrepreneur to help entrepreneurs understand that they can be non-technical and they can start acting on their technical ideas using low code, no code software to help them build, using international talent, as well as using AI. And so we're going to see more and more products and tech developed by non-technical people as it becomes easier and easier for non-technical people to build.
So I'm going to give you a scenario that was given to me at one time. I had an individual who told me that if my website did not look like I spent $50,000 on it, then no one's going to buy from me. And a lot of times people can tell when you're using a pre-built website or a drag and drop situation, whatever it might be, but I want to get my product out there and I don't have the funds to pay someone who codes. I went to school. I know a little bit about coding. So, and information technology. So I have a little knowledge of JavaScript and C++, all that stuff. Sure. So I can code a little bit, right? But I also understand the value that it comes with that. That's not cheap, by no means necessary. So should I fall into the category, or should I be so influenced by that individual who told me, hey, that website needs to look like it's $50,000. You need to go pay somebody. Should I be so caught up on that it does not allow me to move forward?
So I'll say that, I'll answer that two ways. Number one, the expectations of consumers and users are higher, right, than they've ever been. They expect more polished products. They expect, to have better experiences more than they ever have. But with that being said, people also just want their pain to be relieved. And if it's through an ugly interface, if it's through something that isn't perfect, but it's getting the job done, they won't care. And I think the question is great, because I think too many people spend too much money trying to build something that's too perfect. And you don't want perfect to be the stop of what good enough can accomplish, right? And so what I would say is, if you're focused on a real pain, people won't care how ugly your product is. What they will care about is that their pain is getting relieved by whatever it is that you're solving. So we're very much all about lean development. So move as fast as you can, spend as little as you can, and but still solve a real problem. If you're not solving a real problem, it doesn't matter how good it looks. Nobody will use it. And trust me, we've spent plenty of our own money trying to build stuff where there wasn't a market yet for it. I mean, I've failed more businesses than I've succeeded at. So I have a graveyard of companies that haven't worked. And you want to fail fast, and you want to try and prove your model out as soon as you can. And so there's things that I've done where we built landing pages before we even had product built. And I would use kind of growth hacking to do outreach to people, and I'd drive traffic to the site and get email signups of people that were interested in it before we even had the product built. So it doesn't mean that people will buy it either. So there's also false positives out there you have to be careful of. Real quick story, we did a Kickstarter and we built a smart water meter called Fluid, and we got it funded through Kickstarter. We raised $120,000. We ended up building the actual water meter, and it was really a pretty amazing meter. It would just clamp around the pipe, it would read the speed of the water, and it would tell you how much water you're using in real time through the app. You just plug the meter in and download our app, connect it to your Wi-Fi, and you can get real water meter readings. This was during the time when Nest thermostat was really taking off. And so we were kind of on the IoT, Internet of Things bandwagon. But the problem is people don't care about water the way they care about heat and air conditioning. And so there was kind of a false positive. So we weren't able to scale that, and we ended up having to shut that company down. So I would just, let people know that entrepreneurship is an inexact science. And what you need to do is try and identify that pain point that you think you can solve, and then try and see if there's interest out there. Do people care about the problem you're talking about? And if they care about it, how quickly can you get them to start using what you have or to start paying you for what you have? Those are the best indicators that you're starting to get onto something.
So I want to use the idea of your Wi-Fi water heater. I mean, water meter. Let's just use the idea. So the reason what I mean by that is you start with this idea, and now, as you stated, individuals or B2C type of situation where the people are not interested in that. But how about taking that idea to the utility companies or whatever it is? So and I understand there's probably some other red tape type stuff, but sometimes we look at that type of stuff and like, hey, you know what? We're too nervous. We're too afraid. We're not sure how to maneuver in those spaces. How would you encourage someone to get over those type of fears? Because yes, you create a great idea. Consumer might not be interested in it, but it might be another place. So how would you encourage someone to get to that next level of entrepreneurship?
I would say get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, I've done thousands and thousands of sales calls and sales meetings, and I've been shot down, most of the time. And I still hate it. Like, I still get a little anxiety beforehand. I still am like, sometimes, angry afterwards if they're not buying, but you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you have to be comfortable enough to go get out of your comfort zone and put your idea, your service, your product in front of people. And so when we had our water meter, we did actually talk to some insurance companies. We talked to utilities, and yes, there was red tape, and there were issues there, and neither one of those were a great avenue for us.
I can understand
and neither
that.
was direct to consumer. So I feel good enough that we spent enough time on the product, spent enough time talking to those groups. We didn't get the traction we wanted. And now it's just, one of the many stories I get to tell of things that didn't work.
But see, I think also in this, what else were you able to take from those conversations, that those pieces of red tape that you might not have learned before? Now, you know what? Can you now take that information and tweak it for something else, go into another direction, whatever it might have been, because as you stated, because sometimes that's an uncomfortable conversation, but you don't realize what you learn from that. So have you been able to take that experience, quote unquote, like you said, you have a graveyard, a whole, whatever of businesses that might not have come to fruition, but have you been able to take those experiences and apply it to something else?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think part of it really is what I've said before, is like, entrepreneurship is an inexact science. You can find any business that has been started or failed to agree or disagree with your point of view on how a business should or shouldn't be started, right? So I'm in business with two of my best friends. There's plenty of people that say, don't go into business with your friends.
Right.
I wouldn't agree with that. I would say if you can find friends that you can trust through and through, and you put your friendship and family ahead of your business, you could do really well. Guy Kawasaki, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's an investor in Canva. He's been, really successful in writing books, and also, was part of Apple in the early days. I remember hearing him when I was in my mid-20s, and he said, don't listen to the bozos, right? So you have to, and the bozos, the people are going to want to shoot you down and say you can't do it or you don't have a good idea.
Right.
But what I'm saying is you have to test it, right? There's been plenty of times when we've had ideas and people are like, I love that idea. Oh, I would certainly use it. And then we build it and they don't use it and they don't pay for it and they don't love it, right? So there's a book called The Mom Test. And it's a great book because it talks about how you talk to prospects without even talking about what it is that you want to build. And what you're trying to do is get to the point at which you can understand how they are solving their problems, and if what you have is a better way to solve their problems. But you're not asking them to validate your idea. They don't even know what it is you're trying to build, or that you're even trying to build something. So that book, The Mom Test, is a great book in the way that it kind of talks about prospecting and getting people to give you what you need to kind of help you start to begin to validate your idea. But even in that book, he says, this only goes so far. At some point, you have to just do it. At some point, you have to just take the leap and build. And and see if it works and see if it doesn't work. And you just need to mitigate risk however you can, given your circumstances.
But Colin, listen, man, like, I grew up in a household that, might not have encouraged me being creative or encouraged me to go out on a limb. Everybody I'm around is playing it safe, so, and we hear that a lot of times. So how would I get over that? Like you said, prospecting, whatever it might be, because again, that's still out on a limb, right? So how do I put myself in a position to be that uncomfortable? Because the underlying theme is about being uncomfortable right now. So how would I get out of that space? Because everyone else told me, like the show says, that'll never work, right? So how do I get out of that mindset?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to have some belief, right? You don't have to have like an absolute, like daunting belief in yourself that like no matter what you don't have to like have that kind of attitude. You just have to have enough to where you're like, I think this could probably work, and I want to live a life that has a lot of different experiences. Just quick side note for me, what I always put up against making these hard decisions is when I'm 90 years old and I look back on my life, did I live a safe life with no risk and all these regrets? Or will I look back on my life and say, you know what? I failed 70% of the time, but that other 30% enabled me to live a life that I couldn't have imagined and gave me all these experiences and gave me, kind of an ethos and a philosophy on the right way to live life. And so what I would tell people is you don't need to just go crazy. What you need to do is start taking some small steps. So if you got a regular job, dedicate an hour, 2 hours a week, and just say, you know what? I'm going to start building out this landing page on my idea. And all it's going to do is talk about like what it is that I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to start sharing it with, I can start sharing with friends and family, et cetera. Fine. But what you really want to do is start sharing it with other people that, go to some networking events, start sharing it with those people. Or maybe you start sharing it with, maybe do some like light growth hacking with some email or LinkedIn outreach, right? And start driving people there and start having conversations with people about what it is that you want to build. I would say try and have some semblance of an experience that people can get into shortly after, they're signing up onto the landing page. And ideally, even if you start to think about like pricing, like what would that look like? And so I think for a lot of people too, a service business is much easier than building a product, right? So if you start thinking about like a service business, there's this great article called The Ladders of Wealth Creation. If you just type that into Google, Ladders of Wealth Creation, the guy that invented ConvertKit, which is now I think $100 million SaaS, he wrote this article like 5 years ago, but it's great. It talks about how you kind of stair step your way up these ladders to create the kind of company and business that you'd want to create. So I would have your audience check that out and then just start acting on your idea. You don't sit there. Don't let time pass. Just start taking small steps each week.
So
that'll get you out of that'll help you also combat those people that might, not be giving you the encouragement you need.
So one of the things that you had mentioned a few moments ago about putting myself out there, especially on a site like LinkedIn. A lot of times we get caught up in what everyone else is doing. So I'm a coach. I look at other coaches and they're on stages, they're on TEDx's and things like that. I haven't reached that point yet, but unfortunately we get caught up in what everyone else is doing and not understanding our own lane and our own space. Even for an example, like a few moments ago, for those of you, in the green room, Colin and I, we were talking. Colin showed me his office, right? And some of us can look at them like, wow, I wish it was me or whatever it is. We have to also understand like, hey, maybe it's not our time to get to that point. we don't know Colin's story, which Colin is telling us right now. He's been through a lot, right? A lot of ups and downs or whatever it is. But let's make sure that we take this information that, hey, it's a great place to start, So, but in going back to LinkedIn, a lot of us don't use LinkedIn correctly, in growing our business and growing as being an entrepreneur, even just learning, like LinkedIn Learning can help us grow. So how would you suggest for someone to utilize LinkedIn, and what do you have or what do you offer people to use it a little bit better?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great question. So I'll start from the kind of emotional, and kind of intellectual standpoint of LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody, when you're on social media, there is that comparison. There is that, that person's doing better than I am. Like, it's really hard. That's just part of being human.
Right.
And so what I would say, and I have to tell myself this all the time, is stop comparing yourself to other people, compare yourself against yourself. Like, if you can just do that, you're going to save yourself a lot of emotional heartache, and just focus on bettering yourself, compare yourself against yourself, and just know that, what people are putting out there generally is the best of who they are, if they're not lying, right? So,
Right.
so with that being said, yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is a fantastic platform. It's growing all the time, and I think of all the social platforms, it's the one that I probably get the most enjoyment out of, because it's not caustic like, like Twitter or X can be. And it's business oriented, and being an entrepreneur, I like seeing how my fellow entrepreneurs are doing and what they're up to, and it's a great place for people to do that. So I would say, LinkedIn is a great place to be yourself, right? So I always tell people, you want to be authentic to who you are as a person, which means communicate the way that you communicate with your family and your friends, and don't be afraid of, sharing personal stuff that's happening with you. We're all human at the end of the day. Everybody
Right.
on the, end of LinkedIn are other humans.
Right.
The second thing is if you're, also on there and you're representing, a brand, whether that's a brand you work for, whether that's a brand you own, you also want to be authentic to the brand that you're currently representing, and making sure that that's reflected well in the things that you're posting and talking about and the way you talk about stuff. So that's something that I would say just about being authentic. The other thing is really the opportunity. LinkedIn is a platform that keeps growing, and, 90% of the people that are on LinkedIn are lurkers, right? They're not posting content. They're just looking at other people's content. So you might think, there's just tons of information and everything on LinkedIn. There is a lot, but also know that there's also lots of people on LinkedIn, and that if you're posting and you're posting, fairly regularly, and you're posting, a nice mix of content, you're going to be able to make an impact, and people will see what you're posting over time. Okay, so I would say there's that. At the end of the day, you have to marry up your activities on LinkedIn to what it is that you're trying to do. So if you're working for another, if you're working for a company 9 to 5, but you have this side business, and both are a presence on LinkedIn, as long as it's not a conflict with who you're working for, then you should also be creating content with, your side business. You should be connecting with people that you think could be partners, or people that might be interested to hear about your business, or people that might be customers of your business. And so for me, our process is very much, looking at like, honestly, if you would have asked me 6 months ago if I'd be doing kind of this work on LinkedIn, I would have said no. I've been doing LinkedIn growth hacking for 5 years, over, the products that we've scaled ourselves, as well as for Cloudburst clients. And 6 months ago, I went to Josh and Zach and said, I think I could actually turn a business into like helping people with their businesses. And so, I out of Cloudburst came Rainmaker, and that's the name of our LinkedIn service. And of course, Rainmaker, what that means too, from like generating results, right? That's
Right.
about leads and sales, right?
Right.
Closing deals, generating revenue. So, but what I would tell people is focus in on the audience you want to be in front of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then start. What I do with my clients is I reach out to 25 people a day. So we use automation, right, on the back end on our clients' LinkedIn accounts. I reach out to 25 people a day, Monday through Friday during normal working hours. So that's authentic. And then we are creating like a message campaign where we're sending like a first message after they connect. And then X amount of days later, we're sending another message, etc. If somebody responds to a message, we stop sending messages and we let them take that conversation organically and see where that goes. But at the end of the day, it's not only you have to be authentic, but what value are you bringing? You have to bring value to the people that you're communicating with. So, one of the things that's worked out really, really well for me over the last 3 months with some of my testing is doing LinkedIn live streams where I'm educating kind of the audience. So I'm going after for Rainmaker, it's founders, it's business coaches, and it's sales teams. Like those are the people that I'm focusing in on. And so I do this same live stream every week. Depending on the audience, I'll change a couple of small things, but generally it's the same deck and it's, about 20 minutes of my time.
Okay.
I don't have to prep anymore really, because it's pretty much the same information each week. But what LinkedIn does when you go live is that anybody that's on LinkedIn while you're live will get a little alert saying, hey, Maurice has gone live.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I wonder what he's talking about. They'll click in and see what your live stream's all about. They might stay, who knows? But what happens is when your live stream is done, that gets saved as a recording on LinkedIn. And so what I noticed, for example, 2 weeks ago, my latest one that I was looking at, it was like 20 minutes of a live stream on LinkedIn. I got about 30 total minutes of watch time during the live stream. But then when I went back a week later and looked at the recording that was living on LinkedIn, I had over 3 hours of watch time. Okay. So there's a long tail effect that's happening with the live stream recording that is living now on LinkedIn. So that's one thing that I would recommend the audience if their product or service, if they're getting in front of their ideal, if they're connecting with their prospects, they could live stream and they could create these educational live streams that is providing, you're not selling anything, you're just providing education or value. Right? But then there's these little hacks too. Like if you sign up for an event, you can see everybody that signed up for that same event on LinkedIn. If you go to a LinkedIn event, and if your prospects are attending that event, you can create an audience out of that group of the people you want to reach out to. And you can actually message them, even if they're a second or a third degree connection. They don't have to be a first degree connection. So if you're going to the same event as somebody else on LinkedIn, you can now message them. And so if you have something that group would find of high value, you could actually create a sub audience out of that group, and you can message them as a second or third degree connection. Say, hey, we're both attending this event. I just want to let you know I'm also creating this, or I'm also putting on this event about this.
Right.
I thought you might want to know. Right. So anyway, we could go on about little hacks, but there's all you can do on LinkedIn that are really powerful. But what you need to do, number one, is make sure your LinkedIn profile is built out well. And then number two, make sure you're authentic. Number three, know the audience that you want to go after. Number four, know what value you can bring to them, and then start to experiment.
Wow, Colin, man, like you've given us so much to think about, bro. Like,
it's great. I'm glad.
You get, so listen, if someone has a question about Rainmaker or Cloudburst or whatever it is, where can they find you to talk to you about this? Because Colin, I'm not creative enough. I'm not technical enough. I don't know code, and I need some assistance. So where can I reach out to you to find out more information about that?
Yeah. So Monkey Island Ventures, right? .com is the site where you can learn more about like our history and all that, and then you can links out to all of our companies. And then Rainmaker is just rainmakergrows.com.
Okay.
So either one of those. And if people, I love entrepreneurs, and if anybody ever reaches out and they have questions, they want to chat, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to give some time.
All right, cool. I appreciate it. So, Colin, but before I let you go, I got to ask you the question, man. The would you rather question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Colin, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
I'm going with the fork in the road. And the reason is life and entrepreneurship is a journey, right?
Mhm.
And we're making all these decisions. So for me, there's multiple forks in the road, and you're going to be hitting them all the time and making different decisions as you keep going along your path. For me, when I get to those forks in the road, it's about, okay, like I have a decision I have to make here. You know, how am I feeling emotionally? What
Mhm.
data can I use? And how do I make the best decision that I can? And no, I'm going to go down that path, and whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to look back. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to have regrets. I'm just going to keep looking forward and keep making the best decision I can at that point in time, at that fork in the road.
You know, so you asked in the green room, you know, what's
Yeah.
the data wise, what
Yeah.
is the highest answer, right? And right
Mhm.
now, the highest one is the fork in the road, of course.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
even though some people have said, hey, I like more options, being
Mhm.
the doors, they've also asked, what about the if the doors could be glass or acrylic or something so they can see
Mm.
through it, so they can see what's behind it?
We all wish we had that.
Yeah, right. You know, but I've also had more people say the fork because of the journey. You know, because
Mhm.
either way, one fork is going to lead to another fork that's going to lead to another fork. Some people
Yeah.
really wanted to cheat by either looking down or, you know, down the fork itself or looking down at the
Mm.
ground and see, hey, you know, road less traveled. Because if everybody went
Sure.
right, I want to go left. I don't want the same experience that everybody
Love
else
that.
has.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm gonna tell you this one answer that I had, and the guy, the individual, chose not to answer the question because he felt as though that there was another answer, and he had given me, I forgot the term now, but it was a Star Trek answer. It was a whole quiz that was on Star Trek where they were given 2 answers and they said, no, there's a third one. There's always another way to get to the desired, to your destination. So even though you were presented with 2, I don't like those 2. I want another way. So I think that was very outside of the box, no
Yeah.
parameter response.
Mhm. Yeah. So what was his third way of getting there?
Oh, he didn't give one. He just said he didn't like those 2 choices.
Oh,
That was
okay.
it.
Well, come on. I want to know how you're going to get there.
I
Then.
know, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. We need some direction.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but
Mhm.
no, he was concentrating more on telling the whole Star Trek piece, you know,
Yeah, love it.
but I like
Yeah.
the idea, you know, again, as our preference to you, there's no parameters. It's how you can, you know, how you perceive the information and give it. So, but I appreciate you being a great sport and answering it.
Great question. I had a lot of fun. This was great. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Maurice. This has been fantastic.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. And I thank y'all for very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast, and I will talk to you a little later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?